In addition to the Film Look YouTube channel, we've also started the Film Look podcast, and we wanted to tell you guys about it and see if you liked it. You can find the podcast on iTunes and Android, whichever app you use. You can also head along to the filmlook.com. It's on there. It's going to be coming out weekly on a Saturday. That'll be Saturday morning UK time, so you can find it then and listen to it over the weekend. In the podcast, we talk about filmmaking equipment and news that's just been released. We talk about YouTube videos that have been released this week we think filmmakers should watch, because I think you'll benefit from them. Then we have a section that's a topic section. So sometimes we're going to talk about working for no pay, taking criticism. This week we actually talked about reboots and remakes. So it's kind of our opinions on that. Then we have a section that's called You Haven't Seen That, which is a section where we watch films we probably should have seen and then break them down to see how it achieved the film look. We have a section from You Haven't Seen That in this video, so you can get a preview of what we talk about in the podcast. So if you like it, go check it out. And here is You Haven't Seen That.
So, The Incredibles is an animated film by Pixar released in 2004 and written and directed by Brad Bird. It's a film that follows a family of superheroes who are forced to hide their powers and live a quiet suburban life. It was quite well received when it came out. I remember it being everywhere. So it won some Oscars. Do you know what they are?
Best animated, probably.
Yep.
Film. And I'll go like sound design.
Oh, he's got them both.
Yeah, still get a point.
Yeah, you don't get a point.
Do anything for
And
a point.
it was nominated for two others as well, which was Best Original Screenplay and Best Sound Mixing. So who hadn't seen this film this week?
I hadn't seen this film. I can't actually remember when it came out. I can't remember seeing anything about it.
It was everywhere.
Yeah, I know.
The marketing
I clearly just missed it.
You were too busy playing footy.
Probably.
Too busy having a life outside.
Yep.
What were your thoughts on it then?
I really enjoyed it. Obviously, since this film's come out, I've seen about 500 superhero films. And you know what? I think this is one of the best ones because it's about family, it's about life, and it's the kind of superhero thing kind of just gets in the way of them just wanting to be a superhero but wanting to live. And I really enjoyed it.
Considering the market has been heavily saturated by superhero films the past 10, 15 years, it still holds up as a film.
I mean, this superhero film actually has a story instead of I don't think there's actually a moment when anything like a blue light shines up in the sky and tries to kill
blue
the
lights
entire
in the
world.
sky are a common thing.
This is actually real people, real animated people that you can relate to with families and are going through hardship and they come together and it's good.
So have you seen this film, Richard, since it came out? So I assume you watched this when it came out?
I saw it in the cinema.
Yeah.
And then I must have seen it a few years later, but I haven't seen it for must be at least 10 years.
And did your opinion change? Did it hold up?
I was laughing my head off.
Yeah.
I was you know when maybe something's not even funny, but you just love it.
Yeah.
So you're just laughing your head off.
I think that's the magic of Pixar, isn't it?
Yeah. And even towards the end, the credits came up and I just smiled and I said out loud, that was wicked.
To yourself.
Yep, to myself. Yeah.
All right, so let's have a conversation about if it achieved the film look or not. Firstly, I've got here is character development.
I mean, it's you see them, the superheroes at the very beginning, they're really strong. I like how it starts off with an interview with them.
Bon voyage. What do you think of bon voyage?
Bon voyage.
That was good.
That could be a trivia quiz.
Yeah, it could be. And then, you see quickly what happens. They can't be superheroes anymore because everyone's getting sued. And then it's 15 years later. Now they've got a family. They've got mundane jobs. And it's just, and then he wants to get back into, he gets this opportunity to become a superhero again, use his powers, which has been frustrating him for the past 15 years. And, achieve kind of good things in the end. And, people are like, we do need superheroes again. So, yeah, I mean, the character
You made a
really
point there that the superhero aspect of this film was sort of just in the way.
Yeah.
I was thinking even if there was no superheroes in this film, it still would have been a really good film because it would have been about this marriage that isn't quite going well and it's just misunderstanding. The husband's just trying to do well and get a job that's going to pay the bills more, and the wife thinks that he's cheating on him.
Yeah, this film's about the family dynamics rather than them fighting evil.
Which is what makes it such a good superhero film, because it's more like a family movie, and then they just happen to be superheroes.
Well, I think that's again the magic of Pixar. They take these these big ideas and make them relatable.
All right, direction then. What do you think of the direction or execution of the film? I think the visual style of this film is really cool. I didn't realise it until watching it yesterday that it has like that old school Superman from the 1940s feel to it. And the music especially. We'll get into the soundtrack later, but like the newspaper headlines spinning, things like that, and like the olden days recordings like you said at the start.
It's kind of a futuristic 60s. That's what they were going for.
Yeah, I had that. I've got like the set design is like the 60s, like the TVs and stuff. I like these old,
All the furniture,
like pearl shaped and
Yeah.
stuff. And the furniture, yeah. It's all like art deco sort of things, but it doesn't pinpoint when it is, which I think sort of helps it timeless in a way.
Yeah, the film they did before this was obviously Finding Nemo, which is obviously completely different. But for that film, they had 22 sets on Finding Nemo, so 22 sets where the main action happens.
Yeah.
You know, for this film, they had 130 sets.
Wow.
So that just shows you the scale of what they had to create. Because generally, in animation, if you've got a set and you can use it multiple times, you only have to build it once.
Yeah.
But they had 130 different sets within this, which is a big jump up from 22 from Finding Nemo. So, I mean, yeah, it just looks good. I really want some of the storyboards they've got where it's just all rough shapes and they're all colourful. Then you can just look at them and you can see the story and you can see the style they're going from the very beginning, from the concepts, which is really good. And he started drawing boards. Brad Bird started drawing the boards 10 years prior to this film.
Wow.
So he already had the idea in his head, but
Yeah.
Pixar just facilitated that idea and let him create, obviously, this.
Well, I like the tone of this film a lot. Like the way it like flicks between serious and comedy, quite seamlessly. It did that all the way through. And like up until the fight at the end, it's never about the fight at the end as well. It's about the journey rather than the story as well, which is kind of what we were saying before about it's not being about superheroes. It's about the dynamic of the characters.
Yeah.
But they got that tone spot on.
All right, so cinematography. Now, I will say this is the first animated film that we've had to break down, and it's strange with something like cinematography. You're trying to pump in as much so it looks as flawless as possible. You know, you don't want it to be noisy. You want it well lit. You want this and that. But with animation, it's completely the other way around. You get this synthetic feel unless you put the flaws back in. So I just thought I'd say that. Disclaimer. What do you think of the cinematography?
Well, the
of this film?
cinematography of animated film has always fascinated me because every single shot has been thought out like to such detail. They've been working on one shot for months and months and months at a time. So it has to be perfect. And so everything on screen is hopefully exactly what they wanted it to look
It's like
like.
100% intention.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the idea of the amount of time that goes into it is just, it kind of blows my mind.
It's crazy.
But I like the way it looks. It kind of looks like a comic book. It feels like you're watching like a 3D comic book.
Yeah.
Lots of vivid colours, lots of cool angles. I like the design of the characters and the costumes and things like that.
Yeah, what was really good about the colours of the film, so like the office locations of Mr. Incredible's work, it's all blues and greys,
Yeah.
and the school is like browns and greys, and there's not a hint of, well, at least I'm colourblind, so tell me if I'm wrong, there wasn't a hint of red in the film until the suits came in.
No, I think you might be right there.
Because I was looking
Big
for it.
red, yeah.
Yeah.
So there's no like real red, and then when they come on the screen, it's like, whoa.
There's a little bit in the house, like orangey and stuff. But
I think it was a bit orangey in the intro, but again, that's
Yeah.
because the superheroes.
yeah, and
during that
I
time,
think
isn't it?
there's a little bit when he's in his office and he's looking at his past and all the photographs.
Right.
So that's kind of hinting to the future as well. He's
Yeah.
hopeful, and the red and the
Yeah.
oranges work really well. I mean,
So it's going from this very lucid, horrible to
And-
him dreaming about the vivid colours and then going to the vivid
yeah,
colours.
and when they're in the bad guy's base, and the kind of chained up with the
Lasered up?
lasered up. That's lasered up. That's got a massive grade on it where it's like it's dark, it's green, it's the way it should be. If it wasn't like that and it was just kind of very highly saturated and bright, you wouldn't have the same feel. So even that, is a specific choice to choose.
Yeah.
When, especially because I think that scene cuts when they're in the plane as well, and that's a little bit brighter. And then when you cut to him, it's really dark and dingy, so it makes you feel like, okay, this is not safe, this is not good. So they did that really well.
The freedom of animated cameras. Obviously, you can put the camera
The imaginary camera.
wherever you like in this. And what makes it really good is that the stuck to the filmmaking sort of grammar and composition laws when it was necessary. So you had the rule of thirds and you had the over the shoulder shots, and nothing was like super swoopy. This everywhere. Yeah, let's move it around until obviously they get to the action stuff.
Even on the camera throughout the film is quite stationary. The imaginary camera. Even when they're fighting, it's quite just the camera's placed there, and you kind of see everything going on.
The only time they really chopped it really fast is when what's the kid called? The first
Dash.
one? Dash. When it's he's running across the water and those spinny things are after him, and he goes on top of one of them. That's like cut really well.
Yeah.
Usually we go into special/visual effects, but this is a CGI film. It's all visual effects.
Yeah.
So it's non-applicable, really.
It did really well. One of the interesting facts about that though is when they were trying to animate and chat about how the characters are going to be animated, the film themselves, the animators who had that specific scene filmed themselves on camera,
Right.
doing the actions, so they can go, okay, can you just change it like that, so that actually it's based on them moving.
Yeah.
And if they fall down, because one thing they had to get right on this, which they haven't really done in the past, and especially for Mr. Incredible, is weight. They
Okay.
needed to simulate weight, because he can lift big things, but they needed to make it look heavy. So they had to like figure that out. And one of the things they looked at was Jungle Book, when the little kid in Jungle Book,
Mowgli.
was getting like lifted up onto a tree, and it says that film got made years ago, but they're still using the same techniques to show the weight and how it, a character gets pushed back if they're lifting up something and it's a little bit too heavy, because he can lift massive amounts, but he still needs to like lift it up and show weight. So they did that by filming themselves on those big yoga balls, falling on and lifting them up and seeing how they would move. So that was quite interesting.
That's cool.
That's pretty cool.
All right, so editing.
I thought the pace and the writing was great in this. There was never a dull moment for me. And you kind of never knew what was going to happen next. There was quite a, one thing after the other, but there wasn't the generic formula that you see in a lot of the superhero films, which I really enjoyed.
What would be that formula?
Well, just the kind of, you introduce the superhero,
Then you
Yeah.
introduce the villain.
and you introduce the villain. It's somewhere
And then they
in the
meet up
middle
at
bit,
some
they have
point.
the superhero has a fall, and then he conquers them at the end.
Yeah.
It kind of does have that, but
It's well hidden.
well hidden, yeah. But I just thought, when they were jumping from scene to scene, I really didn't know what was going to happen next. I didn't know where I was going to be. When he went and got his super suit from Edna.
Who is actually Brad Bird's voice,
Yeah.
which is pretty cool. It's really funny watching him actually do that. So.
Yeah, that's really cool. Sound design. Obviously, being a CGI film, all of the sound design had to be created at some point.
I think the film sounds very alive.
Yeah.
Everything makes a noise. I think it's integrated well. Hats off to them. Well done.
What
They
I
won an
really
Oscar for it,
liked-
didn't they?
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
they
true.
did. Yes.
My favourite sound in it was the, when they're on the island and the flying saucer speeder things are going past.
Yeah.
Were they like Formula One cars mixed with like knives or something?
Yeah, the way they did it was it's sharpening knives.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
you can
Because
hear
you could,
that
you
in
could
the-
feel the
Yeah.
like discs hitting each other.
Yeah, and obviously a few other sounds put into that, but one of the
Yeah.
main things was like sharpened knives, because that's what they look like, knives.
Yeah,
So.
yeah, like metal making contact with metal. Yeah, it was really good. It sounds great. All right, soundtrack. Now, when I was watching it last night, at first I was thinking, all right, well the soundtrack's just sort of there. You don't really think about it. But then I woke up this morning and I went, da-na-na-na-na. Yeah, it's certainly got a motif.
Yeah, it's definitely got an old style to it as well. It's something that we've kind of heard, but kind
Yeah,
of
it's
not
really
heard.
sort of like
Yeah.
old James Bond or
Yeah.
like Austin Powers music.
Yeah, kind of in between both. There's not too silly and not too serious.
Yeah,
And I mean, like it says, I was watching it, and then you feel like it's always an undertone, and you're like, yeah, this is really good.
really
So
cool. Yeah. It certainly had like an old school comic book.
I think one thing that helped
Detective-y
with that
sort
as
of
well is they filmed. It's a live orchestra. They did it the proper way, and not
Right.
like sections. That it was, because originally it was like everyone in the room together bouncing off each other. Nowadays we'll do that section, then that section, that section. But the Brad Bird likes the old school way, and
Yeah.
they've got the right people in to do it. But what's interesting about the soundtrack is, can you remember what the soundtrack is of like Iron Man, Avengers, Captain America? There isn't a specific
No.
sound. I mean,
No.
Wonder Woman and Batman do have them, the DC ones,
Yeah.
but Marvel ones, I don't know.
There's nothing really there, is there?
No, there's
No.
not. But with this, there's like you know exactly what you're watching, and it's kind of, I would put that song into like
It's like a
me
trademark, isn't it?
I'm going to put that song into my soundtracks folder, when you just want to listen to soundtracks, because it will.
Well, they've been doing that for years. Like Darth Vader has his own soundtrack, doesn't he?
Yeah.
Luke Skywalker has his own tune.
Yeah.
They do that in Lord of the Rings.
Mm-hmm.
And I do like films like that. Kind of puts you in the mood that I want you.
Yeah,
and
like
instantly
each
transport
character
you,
has
doesn't
their
it?
own theme. It's just,
Yeah.
it's really nice and it's recognizable.
But yeah, you're totally right about the Marvel stuff.
You can't.
I've never thought about it before, but I can't think of
mention like Iron Man certainly has like a heavy rock.
Yeah, but that's like
But the
a
actual
well-known
song itself.
Yeah, it's actually a song that's been recorded years ago from
Yeah.
a band. It's probably, I don't know.
It's
Sabbath.
Back to Black, isn't it?
Yeah, so
Yeah.
it's not an original song for the piece that
Yeah.
you'll remember. It's just a song that's already been out.
Would you do it differently? And if you did, how would you do it differently?
I thought that I had some issues with the story.
Okay, yeah,
I thought there was a few plot holes and weak areas that I would fix if I redid it.
right.
But I guess I'm more forgiving because it's an animated film. If
don't
this-
be. Please
No,
don't be.
don't
Don't
be.
be, because they wouldn't want you to be.
Well, I thought the initial premise that the supers were kind of sued and they were banned from
It was a little too easy.
It was a bit weak and contrived for me. Especially given that in the first 10 minutes it was set up that they're kind of working amicably with the police and they weren't vigilantes and they were kind of ingrained within the fabric of the city. And then a second later, we're finding out that they were sued for saving a guy's life.
Everyone's against them, yeah.
And the two examples that they used, like the guy that he saved when he jumped and when he was jumping off the building,
Yeah.
and then he kind of broke his neck or something,
Hurt
hurt
his
his neck.
He was-
What was the other option there? To let him die?
Yeah.
He wanted to kill himself.
No,
And
that
then-
makes sense.
And
yeah.
then when he stopped the train, that was the other example they used. That everyone on the train sued him. What did they want him to do? Just let them all die to their
Yeah, that's
to
true.
their death. So I guess that
think-
initial premise was a bit weak for
Yeah,
me.
they
I know it was just a vehicle to get where they wanted to be, but I don't
They
know.
could have got there in a better way.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's a fair point. Now I've thought about it, it's like, okay, the only thing I would say about that, at least it's done within the first like 5 to 10 minutes,
Yeah.
and then you're into the real story. So,
But it's forgivable because it's like very comic-y.
yeah,
So it's sort of your suspension of disbelief is still untarnished because of that. If it was in a realistic film, you would just be like, "What are you doing?"
yeah,
Yeah.
you
But
walk out.
I did notice when the guy was falling about to die,
yeah.
and he saved his life, and then later on he was saying, "Oh, you hurt us." Maybe we should have seen that character, sort of being a horrible person beforehand, because then it would be warranted. Then we would say, "All right, well, he's the type of guy that is just a horrible guy, and he's going to take advantage of suing someone." But he was just a lonely man who wanted to kill himself, and
Yeah.
then he
Or-
becomes this horrible guy, and his lawyer's there.
Or seeing that after he survived, that he's in more trouble now that he's alive or something. Like, it's actually probably better that he's dead.
if we can have more of a reason for doing it, like
Yeah.
maybe his hand was forced into
Yeah.
suing him by like another bad guy or something.
Well, maybe it's
Yeah.
by, I suppose, no, I wouldn't. I was going to say the bad guy, but he was a kid at the
he
time,
was about
wasn't he? Yeah.
10,
He
yeah.
was-
All right, so have you got any trivia, fun facts, or fan theories?
My only one was what Rob just said before, that Brad Bird played the little woman.
Oh, sorry.
No, that's fine.
I got a cool one. So
Go on.
Brad Bird wanted Samuel L. Jackson to be the voice of Frozone because he just wanted that character to have the coolest voice.
Yeah, yeah. As soon as I heard the voice, I was just like, that's Samuel L. Jackson, is
Yeah.
it? Yes, I'm going to love this.
And he does have the coolest voice.
He does have a cool voice.
Yeah. In
Where
order
is-
to give Dash a realistic out of breath voice, Brad Bird made Spencer Fox, the guy who played him, run laps around the studio.
That's a common trick in
Yeah.
acting, isn't it?
Yeah, he can't fake out of breath.
Yeah.
I mean, it sounds sexual, doesn't it? Really?
On a podcast, maybe. Yeah.
One of the things with the animation as well, they took them so long to get long hair right, so that you can do short hair because it doesn't really move. But the daughter's, I can't remember what she's called. Violet. Her long hair. There's some outtakes which are quite funny when they were trying to get this right.
Oh, it's just with the rigging going really weird and going all over the place.
It just goes all over, and they got told literally a year before the film was going to be out, because obviously films like this take like 4 or 5 years to finish. A year since the technology is not there to do this long hair.
Right.
But then all of a sudden they just figured something out, the coders of this film, which they say in the making of, the coding how to make this film while the people who's using the program that's been coded are making it.
Yeah.
So the technology is just always advancing all of the time, and they just stumbled across this render engine that they made and did, and then her long hair was they could do it. But what was interesting, then they had to show the long hair in the wind, they had to show it wet, because they figured out how to just have it on her. But everything else, then they had to figure out over there. And it says this technology, they need to patent it because they're the true heroes. They're they're the masters of this film.
They're
They
the
should be getting
Incredibles.
yeah, basically the coders, because he says they're quite quiet people anyway. That without them, this film wouldn't have happened. So that was really interesting about hair. The last thing I would say is, if you can watch the making of this, because kind of Brad Bird films, he vlogs basically his first day at Pixar. He goes in the door and he goes to the reception, like, "Oh, you're Brad Bird, aren't you?" And he's like filming it and things. And he seems like such an animated character, and he seems like you can have an argument with him if you've got it. Because there's thousands of animators that worked on this, and one of them was arguing about Mr. Incredible's hair because Brad Bird wanted him bald, and he was like, "No, I've worked on this hair so much," and he was shouting at them, and Brad Bird's face was just like so excited because someone was challenging him to for this idea and saying why it was so good. And if you don't challenge the filmmakers and yourself, you just compromise on something, but you get the bad ideas out, so the good ideas, there's space for them to come in. And I would like to, if you ever got a chance to meet them, it's just like, yeah, let's challenge each other to make the best thing possible, which is the best thing about filmmaking. Me and Richard argue all the time, but it's for the good.
Cool. So any summary statements about The Incredibles?
I really love The Incredibles. It still is my favourite superhero film. And you know what? Arguably, like Toy Story is in my top 5 films of all time, and it has to be my favourite Pixar film. But man, I think it's a close second.
Yeah, this is definitely a close second.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
I would say Toy Story. Doesn't matter really.
I do like Monsters Inc. as well.
I'm
That's
not
good,
a big
isn't
fan
it?
of Monsters Inc.
Oh, really?
No, well, I'm a fan, obviously, but
But not a big fan.
I like Finding Nemo better.
I don't. I haven't seen Finding Nemo in a long time, so.
All right, so what's the next film that we're going to watch? We've got 3 suggestions. There Will Be Blood, Citizen Kane, and Heat. What are you thinking?
Yeah, so There Will Be Blood is Paul Thomas Anderson, isn't it? Citizen
Yes.
Kane is Orson Welles, and Heat is... Oh, who did Heat? Oh, it was...
Someone.
I forgot. Anyway, what do you think?
Well,
Very different films there.
What have you not seen?
I haven't seen Heat, Citizen Kane, or There Will Be Blood.
I've seen them all.
I've seen There Will Be Blood and Heat. You choose, Rob.
Let's go with Heat because I've got it on DVD and I haven't watched it,
There you go.
but I've watched behind the scenes.
All right, cool. So next week we're going to watch Heat.
Yeah, so if
Wicked.
you want to watch
Michael
it,
Mann. That's of course.
Michael
it
Oh, yeah,
was.
of course it is, yeah.
if you want to watch Heat, and then you can, listen and kind of see if we have similar suggestions.
Yeah,
as
we'd
what you
love
do.
to know,
What you thought
listeners'
about
opinions as well.
of how you thought it achieved the film look, and if it did, or if it didn't.
Yeah, I'm excited for Pacino and
Another Pacino film.
who's the other one? De Niro.
De Niro, Pacino, and De Niro.
and the guy who played, what's his name? Val Kilmer.
Val Kilmer.
He's
Val
in it as
Kilmer,
well.
yeah.
Batman.
The guy who played Val Kilmer.
Yeah.
Val Kilmer.
and, and Natalie Portman.
Oh, don't spoil it.
Is she?
I didn't
I
know.
haven't got the cast right in front of me.
No,
Yeah.
no more. I haven't seen it. I don't really know what it's about. There's lots of guns.
It's about cooking. Heat.
Yeah.
Oh, is
It's
it?
a cooking
like chef.
film.
Like chef.
Like chef, yeah.
Oh, cool.
Okay, cool. Well, that was... You haven't seen that? Where next week we'll be talking about Heat.